Welcome to the Irishman, Englishman and Scotsman Football Podcast. Hello and welcome to the Irishman, Englishman and Scotsman Football Podcast. How are you doing, lads?
Yeah, good.
Good, thank you.
The world of football is in shock, including us. We're going to get to that in a while. Just a rundown on tonight's show. We're going to have a preview of the midweek Premier League games. Plenty of games to talk about. We will, of course, be back on Friday as well to preview the weekend's games. Jose Mourinho is gone, sacked by Tottenham. And we're going to chat about that as well. And then we're going to have a look into probably the worst thing to ever happen in football, called the European Super League. Right, guys, kicking off Tottenham Wednesday night, 7 o'clock, Spurs against Southampton. Joe, Spurs drew 2-2 with Everton. They really need to win this to keep any hopes they have alive for the Champions League. We'll go into Southampton in a second, Joe, but this is huge news today, lads. Jose Mourinho has been sacked 6 days before the League Cup Final.
I was really surprised when I saw that kind of, the notification pop up. I was not expecting him to go so suddenly. I can only assume he's had a huge argument or row with, Daniel Levy, and he's been sacked. It's extraordinary. This is the Spurs team who were top of the league in October. They put 6 past Man United. They were playing some great football, but as we've seen with Mourinho at Chelsea and at Man U, when things start to go wrong, he doesn't seem to be able to turn it around anymore. He seems to have lost that touch, and I think he just criticised the players in public one too many times. And I think the last one, when he said same coach, different players, was probably the final straw. Incredible.
You were saying there, JP, about, Europe, or was it Joe? I can't remember, talking about European football. I think that the leadership think that this is the final nail in the coffin, and that draw was their last hope. And so now that they've gone, well, season's over, aside from this Carabao Cup Final, it does seem really suspicious. I tried to look and see if there was any, timings. It's roughly 18, 19 months since he signed his contract. Maybe there's something in there that he was unsackable for the first 18 months or whatever it was. Tottenham are in free fall, I would say. If they lose on Sunday, who's going to come in? It's on the precipice of being a basket case club.
What's amazing as well is, so they've done this. So Harry Kane has contributed to 34 goals this season. They've got the best player in the league. And they're still, really, really struggling to make that top 4.
The weird thing is, though, you're saying they're in free fall. The funny thing is, the results are not as bad as, taken really, really dispassionately. It's not like they're in the midst of an awful, 8-game losing run or anything like that. They're just they're on the same sort of run that everyone's had this season. So I think Finno, you're right. There's something else going on there. Do you know what I mean? It's just, it's the class of personalities. It's he's lost the dressing room, whatever it is, but it's not purely just down to losing games.
Yeah, I mean, it's more so also, Kev, a good point there, that they're not in free fall. It's not the end of the world. If you look at the table, with 6 games to go, Spurs are 5 points off West Ham in the Champions League place. This has been a crazy season. Anything can happen. So Spurs, a new coach could come in and they could end up in the top 4. Results have been absolutely bonkers. But then you also look at the amount of times they've given away leads. Like, they were head against Newcastle till the last minute. And Newcastle, I think Callum Wilson got a penalty. West Ham, they were 3-0 up. Ended up 3-3. There's so many games. The Man United game, they're 1-0 up, they're cruising. Then they lose 3-1. Again, there's so many times this has happened. I also heard a rumor, it might not be true, but that Jose refused to take the players' training when he found out about the European Super League. Could be very shallow, who knows? I wouldn't imagine he would have been overly happy about that. Who knows? But it's a big loss to the Premier League. I know the football hasn't been good to watch, but him as a personality, he's box office. He's Mr. Grumpy, but Finno.
You guys are defending that they're not in free fall, but they've lost to West Ham, Arsenal. They crashed out of the Europa League. They lost to Man United, who they beat, 6-1, 6-2 earlier in the season. Those are all teams that they would expect to win against, or at least be competitive against. And the games that they have won, they've won against Villa, they've won against Fulham, all teams that have struggled to pick up points. So again, this group of players just seems to have only gone so far with Mourinho. And whoever comes in, if it's Nagelsmann, if it's Rodgers, even Ledley King's been talked about, they've got a job in their hands, I think.
Do we think that this is now it for Jose in the Premier League? I can't see what other club he could go to now. He's done Chelsea twice, Spurs, Man United. He's not going to manage City. He's not going to manage Liverpool. He's not going to manage Arsenal. Do you think we'll ever see him again in the Premier League?
There's only one place he can go, Joe. If the Newcastle takeover happens, he can take over from Steve Bruce. But I mean, on the flip side, if a new manager comes in, if Spurs win next week, they've won the cup. And if they go on a mega run, they finish up in the Champions League place. It's probably not going to happen, but it's still not beyond the realms of possibility. This is 7:00 on Wednesday, folks. There is another team involved in this game. Sorry, Joe. Southampton, of course, lost the cup semi-final to Leicester. Season's over. Just about stayed up. We do, who's in charge, Vino? Will it be Ledley King, assistant coach?
I can't remember who it is, but it is a backroom staff member of some sort.
Yeah, that happens a lot of time, lads, when, a manager is sacked and then an intern comes in and the team just completely turned it around. Like I think when Jose left Man U, Pogba started playing, Man U started playing. I wouldn't be surprised if Spurs go on a run. I can't see them beating City in the cup final, but I can certainly see them beating Southampton, Joe, here, because Southampton have been on a horrible run, really. I mean, you're 3 points off 17th place in Burnley. So, I think it would have been a real kind of dagger blow as well, because that was a real hope that you would get to the cup final. Now that's gone.
Yeah, I certainly don't think Spurs need to turn anything around to beat Southampton. We were dreadful in the FA Cup semi-final. It was so disappointing. That was such a huge opportunity to reach an FA Cup final. We didn't lay a glove on Leicester. Just inept, lacked any kind of energy, really lethargic, very un-Southampton from the first part of the season. And I really actually worry for us a bit now, because we've got, if we can't get up for an FA Cup semi-final, wouldn't surprise me if we lose all of our final games and, finish 17th. And I guess the only good thing is that because we've been so bad, Spurs won't be coming sniffing for Ralph Hasenhüttl, I wouldn't have thought. Whereas if we'd have carried on playing as we were earlier in the season, winning games, he may have been very near the top of their target list.
Very strange, though, the kind of contrast in styles at Tottenham, in a sense, because we were accusing them of being so boring and just defensively, and they were drawing games 0-0 or winning 1-0. But, recently they're scoring, but they can't defend, and they're conceding late on. That's kind of what's happened. Jose actually brought that up himself in a post-match interview. He said, but usually it's the other way around. You are accusing me of being boring and defensive. So I can, it's all gone bonkers at Tottenham. Second game on Wednesday night, 9:15 at Villa Park. Aston Villa against Manchester City. Villa haven't played since the Liverpool defeat a week and a half ago against Man City side, who the quadruple is now over. They dropped 8 players from the team that beat Dortmund in the Champions League quarter-final against Chelsea in the FA Cup semi-final and lost. I thought there was no fluidity, but that's going to happen. And Pep's come in for some kind of criticism because, he could have played, the goalkeeper, Phil Foden, etc. from the start. He didn't. I understand it's a long season. They're in 4 competitions. He's trying to even it out. He did say also about the American goalkeeper that he was always going to start every game of the season. Man United are just kind of creeping up on them. Man U have won the last 5 league games in a row. City have won 4 of the last 6, lost 2. There's 8 points in it. I mean, nobody's going to give Man U a fighting chance, but they couldn't, could they, Kev?
I don't think so. Going by my standard rule of you want to be more, you don't want to get it down to 1 point per game ahead. This could be the turning point, couldn't it? If they lost this and Man United won, that would make it 5 behind with 5 to play. So they might just be like that faintest hint. I don't know. It has been a weird few days, hasn't it, for Man City? Because obviously there's that defeat. There's been a lot of talk about Raheem Sterling being frustrated. Would that be the word? And it just all doesn't seem just quite as rosy as it did for a second there, does it? So look, Man City will be absolutely fine, I'm sure. But you wouldn't want more than one more defeat.
I think if you were a Man City fan, you would take the defeat to Chelsea if that meant that you're going to win the Champions League. You know, I think the Champions League is absolutely the one trophy that they're looking for, and if it's just a potential treble, the worrying thing will come is if they, you know, slip up here and then potentially lose the Carabao Cup final to Tottenham, then the wheels really start to, you know, come off, and then there could be a bit of pressure applied, and then they might be looking around being like, why have we not got a recognised number 9? But City have been so good consistently that I can't see this being any more than just a blip in what otherwise has been a really good season.
Yeah, I put that Chelsea defeat down to the fact that they've, you know, brought 8 players in. That's it. But back to your point there, Kev, Raheem Sterling has been poor. His end product has been poor. I looked at the last 4 or 5 seasons at a graph actually after the game against Chelsea, and this is his worst return. I think he's only got 9 goals this season, which might sound quite okay for most players, but for his standards, it's pretty low. Of course, lots also down to the form of Phil Foden, who's kept him out of the team. They should go ahead and beat Tottenham and win the League Cup. I think they're playing Chelsea after this game. Now, if you remember the reverse fixture in this one, Villa actually gave City a really good game, and City got some controversial late goals. They're playing a lot of football. Dortmund, obviously, and then midweek, and then, of course, Chelsea. Villa have had a nice rest. Jack Grealish is back. The teams that kind of tend to give City trouble are teams like Leeds, who go at them and just, you know, don't bother putting 10 men behind the ball. If Villa, you know, if Grealish is back and they give it a go, I wouldn't be surprised if they make a game of it. But, of course, we're all going to go for a Man City win. Moving on to Thursday night, huge game, 9 o'clock on both ends of the table. Leicester against West Brom. Now, you know, Leicester have lost the last 2 league games. Of course, they're in the cup final, but they need this. They need to win this game to keep the Champions League hopes alive because the league form's been poor. West Brom, on the other hand, won the last 2. And this, you know, Big Sam's never gone down. He has to win every game, I think, to have any kind of fighting chance. So, you know, this could make for a really good game. And it's a Midlands derby. Finno.
If they win here, West Brom, I think they'll bridge the gap to Burnley to just 6 points, which still, again, going by Kev's magical point per game scenarios, is still very unlikely. But you just really never know. And if you're West Brom, you saw Arsenal's last-minute equaliser against Fulham as one of those, actually, maybe it is our year kind of moments. Leicester, yeah, obviously they'll be buoyant, but as Joe said, you know, they kind of there wasn't really a glove laid on them. So how complacent might they be going into a game against a team so far down the table? It has all the makings of something that could be, you know, a bit of a banana skin, but usually these games end up reverting to type, don't they?
I don't know if you said that last week about West Ham and Newcastle.
It's true.
No, but I mean, if you look at also that the league table, the Premier League, this stage of the season, there's nothing predictable. The Premier League table means nothing in that sense. Like, you know, Newcastle obviously beating West Ham. If you look at Leeds beating Man City, anything can happen in the Premier League. You know, it's not like Bayern Munich winning every single week. That's the real good thing about the Premier League, and we hope that it stays this way. But yeah, I mean, Leicester will be the favourites, but West Brom will definitely give this one a go. Moving on to Friday night at 9 o'clock, Arsenal against Everton. Arsenal, I watched them in midweek, and they destroyed a really poor Prague team to qualify for the Europa League semi-finals. And that's, well, what I predicted earlier on, actually. Well, I think that's their sole focus is the Europa League. They're into the semi-final now. Then I watched them against Fulham, and they were awful. Fulham really should have won the game. 97-minute equaliser. Everton, of course, drew 2-2 with Spurs. Very entertaining game for the neutral. They could they, you know, possibly have a late surge now for the Europa League. That's their only hope for the season.
Yeah, it was interesting. I was you couldn't help feel for Scott Parker, could you, when you saw him on the sidelines?
I almost felt sorry for him.
When Arsenal stole that late equaliser, because they were awful. Arsenal, they did not deserve a point in that game. Everton, we've been saying for the last few weeks, their form has really dropped off. I don't think they've won any of their last 5. I think there's a good chance that Arsenal may finish in the bottom half of the table, which for a supposed European super club. So you wonder where the goals are going to come from for Arsenal in this one. But I think this could be a boring draw.
Yeah, I think the same. I think it's a score draw written all over it. Probably much like Everton's game against Tottenham, to be honest. I have to go back to Thursday night, as you talked about there, JP, with against Slavia Prague. An incredibly strong image it was when Alex Lacazette was kneeling on the centre circle in front of the Slavia Prague players. I think it sent all the right messages to a team that have been embroiled in quite the scandal. And then they have quite a winnable semi-final against Villarreal, who are led by Unai Emery. So again, it provides this nice little storyline to the Europa League. It's interesting to talk about Arsenal because this is Arteta's first full season, and he will be judged on results. And if they can win the Europa League, is that potentially a success for Arsenal, even if they do end up finishing in the bottom half of the league?
Yeah, I think it would be because of the funds. If you look at the money that Man United, Liverpool, Man City, Chelsea spend, Arsenal don't spend that much these days. And I think, winning the Europa League, getting back into the Champions League would be, deemed a success. But I don't think they're going to beat Man United in the final if they get there. I think United have that wrapped up, another European trophy for Man U. Right, lads, moving on to the elephant in the world of football room. As a new European Super League was announced, the 12 founding members are Man City, Man United, Liverpool, Arsenal, Tottenham, Chelsea, Barcelona, Real Madrid, Atletico Madrid, Juventus, AC Milan, and Inter Milan, who've all signed up. Supposedly, there's another 8 teams going to join them. It'll be a 20-team league, midweek games. This, then produces so many questions. What's going to happen to the Champions League, to the Europa League? Will the best players from the smaller teams leave because they can't compete with the Super League wages? Will this even go ahead? Who knows? Finno.
Stephen Fry tweeted about it earlier today, and Stephen Fry, being such an eloquent man, I thought I would read out what he tweeted. So he said, talking about the English football teams that have signed up, 6 football clubs have achieved something that no politician or public figure has managed in these times of fracture, fission, and feuding. They have brought together the whole divided nation, indeed all of Europe, everyone united in disgust and revulsion at such greed and stupidity. And I think that sums up the general consensus or general feeling of a lot of football fans. It's not unbelievable, but it's almost unbelievable that they've had the temerity to go and announce it. Who knows what will happen to the UEFA competitions? UEFA are coming down really hard and saying that they're not going to be able to even play at, the World Cup, for example. So do we then see a second-rate World Cup in Qatar? Ultimately, this is just 2 fingers up to your average fan. And these owners deem these fans, the average fans like you and I, as legacy fans. We're not the fans that they're going after. They're going after, not even fans really, they're going after customers, they're going after viewers, they're going after users. And it will be very interesting to see what repercussions, if any, are felt right the way down the English football pyramid as the Premier League meet tomorrow.
Yeah, Florentino Perez has been declared the first chairman. And I think it was either him or the guy who came from Juventus, who's also on the committee. When they're asked about the World Cup, they said, well, don't worry, we'll make our own World Cup, which was, absolute bonkers. Surely, though, this won't go ahead, Kev.
The one thing I'd say there is I go back a little way with Florentino Perez, right? So I've sat down with him before. I've interviewed him before. He's a really shrewd guy. And I know nothing about what's been going on behind the scenes here. Absolutely no idea what's been going on. But do you all remember when he got elected to the presidency of Real Madrid, and it was all based on a contract that he'd signed with Luis Figo? Right? So he won that election based on this incredible coup that he staged, getting a deal to sign Luis Figo from Barcelona for 56 million euros or whatever it was at the time. Right. He is so shrewd. I wonder if he's got them all to sign up to something that they can't back out of. That's normally, I'd be the first one to say this isn't going to happen. You see, everyone said, Gary Neville, everyone said when it came out, fine, but it's not going to happen, is it? It's just not going to happen. The one thing that makes me think that might not be the case is I just think they might have all signed on the dotted line and they might no be backing down.
Is there also a possibility, Kev, that Florentino Perez and Real Madrid and the likes and Barcelona, and obviously Juventus, who couldn't compete, these guys couldn't compete with, the power horses of the Premier League. The Premier League money is crazy. and it's easily overtaken La Liga and Serie A. So in order then to kind of compete, you're obviously going to get the same money as the English teams now. Did he push it that way? It's obviously it's money motivated, surely.
It's absolutely money motivated. There's no doubt at all about that. It's all about cash. And I don't think, look, I don't know much about the finances of these clubs. I know Barcelona have been in some trouble, in terms of debt. I wouldn't be at all surprised if that's the case for some of the others as well. And I'm sure this is about, Reuters spoke to JP Morgan this morning and got it confirmed that the finance behind this. And if this is a way of getting 200 or 300 million euros guaranteed around about now, that's going to solve a lot of problems for some of these clubs, just in terms of, the basic money that you need to run. I mean, don't forget, these have been affected by the pandemic enormously.
Taking it away from like the big business side of things and taking it down to pure football, as in seeing Real Madrid against Liverpool twice a year for the next however many years, it ruins the magic of European football so much. Somewhat ironically, the best Champions League tie since Liverpool's miracle against Barcelona was between two teams that have supposedly said no. Bayern, the reigning European champions, and PSG. We look at the teams that they've chosen, teams like Tottenham, who really you can't claim are a European superpower, similar to, an Ajax even. Look at their European history compared to Tottenham. Porto, PSG, Dortmund, Ajax, Benfica, even Roma, all these teams that I could probably make a decent argument are worthy of being seen as elite teams. And what I think is really a shame is that we'll lose that kind of smaller team going up against the big powerhouses and potentially springing a surprise. I mean, all three of us, aside from Kev, have had teams. If you think about Newcastle beating Barcelona, Rangers getting to the UEFA Cup Final, I think Southampton beat Inter in the Europa League. Where I'm coming from is, all of that is lost in this kind of guaranteed, sanitized, essentially European league. And ultimately, the people that lose out are the fans, because we're going to lose that kind of magic of European football.
Do you know what? I totally agree with you there. I think a lot of people have used the word shame, right? A lot of people have said these clubs should be ashamed of themselves, right? I don't know. I'm not going to say that football is perfect as it is at the moment. I think it's, you can look at the Premier League, and we had these conversations 20 years ago or however long it was, and the Premier League is not in this for the love of, absolutely for the love of the game beyond all else, right? The Premier League was set up to ensure massive revenue streams as well, right? But the one thing I'd say is it just sounds crap. Right, that lineup of 12 teams, doesn't it just sound crap? Right, so you're going to get three more. All right, they don't seem to know where those three are coming from. And then there are going to be 5 places open. Those 20 teams over and over again. Just sounds really boring. Now, the only thing I'd say there is if they'd have come up, I'm not saying this wouldn't have been acceptable to anyone either, right? But if they'd have come up with some amazing new razzmatazz, incredible new idea for revolutionizing the game, and suddenly we were going to get something we didn't even know we wanted, you could imagine that there might be some reason to be, excited about this. But the fact that it's just so goddamn boring just means there is not a saving grace to this announcement. And I'm not going to use a word like a shame. I just think it's crap.
Yeah, it is. It is a terrible idea, Kev. I'll go with you on that. And also, maybe the Champions League will stay on, but they won't be involved. Then you have to look at the League Cup and the FA Cup. The top 6 teams, they're not even the top 6. Tottenham, just top 6, but these 6 greedy teams, they're going to play their second team in the League Cup, in all the FA Cup games. Then you would think, okay, the rest of us have a chance. The West Hams and the Newcastles and Southampton, but they're going to probably buy the best players. They're going to have a squad of 22 players, where the 11 are, starters for everyone else. So you could see, for example, Danny Ings, Declan Rice, Alan Saint-Maximin going to Tottenham and then to play in their second team in the League Cup.
The other thing is that the fact that there are these 5 open places, I assume that they will go to maybe teams that finished 5th or who won the Premier League outside of these 6 teams and won Serie A outside of those 3 teams. Those teams are going to have such a massive immediate advantage. If we think about, if I think about Rangers, for example, or Celtic in the Scottish League, the Champions League is worth roughly about £40 million a year to them. That is a huge amount of money in Scottish football terms, more than many teams put together have as an annual budget. Imagine timesing that by 10, and basically what we're saying is that if a Rangers or Celtic got into this European Super League for just one season, they will have almost constant dominance over their domestic league, until the end of time. And not only does it ruin English football, but it will ruin these other regional leagues, and it makes a mockery of it all.
Which brings me on to a question for you, Finno. What about Rangers and Celtic then possibly joining the Premier League?
It's the same question, isn't it? It's just a slightly different amount of money.
Leaving Scottish football altogether and joining the Premier League.
But what we're doing that for is money. We're doing it for the riches that would come from being in the Premier League. And why do we have any God-given right to be in the Premier League over Luton Town or Norwich or whoever else is in the Championship? I'm proud to be a Scottish football fan. I think Rangers and Celtic are great for the Scottish football game, despite everything that goes around in the background and the baggage that goes along with them. I think Rangers and Celtic bring a lot of eyes to Scottish football. I wouldn't like to see Rangers in a Premier League, put it that way.
No, I think things are fine the way they are. The Champions League has brought so much money since the old days when the European Cup was the European Cup. If you finished first, you got in. If you lost the game, you were knocked out, and that's it. The Champions League effectively is a European Super League. Why do we need more? Have you not got enough bloody money already? It's absolute bonkers.
What about you, Joe, as a fan of like a club like Southampton? Can you even see yourself watching something like that if yet again it's, I don't know, Juventus against Arsenal again for the third time that season?
It's a tricky question, isn't it? Because if there's nothing else on the TV and you've got Barcelona against Juventus on a Wednesday night, you're not going to watch it. I don't know. I think you've both said it well. Is the novelty quickly wears off, doesn't it? So I think as a fan, I'd rather watch League Two, League One and the Championship than watching these guys play each other over and over again, because the novelty factor wears off really quite quickly, I think. And it's something we've seen. I don't think anyone would argue that the Champions League isn't as good as it was maybe 10, 15 years ago. The competition could do with some changes, but this is not the bright idea to, save the Champions League. I just don't see anything good about this at all. So for me, as a fan of a club like Southampton, who would never ever be able to find themselves in this league, I would rather watch the Championship and the lower divisions.
Ultimately, as well, I think the ones caught in the middle are the players. If the threats aren't just threats and they come to fruition, and we're talking about those players attached to these teams not playing on a World Cup, can we really imagine a World Cup without Messi, Aguero, Ronaldo, etc.? It's all so interlinked, and global football as a whole needs their superstars, not just in one league, but spread out across the world to make sure that football is growing, everywhere. We saw it in China. Chinese fans don't seem to flock to the Chinese Super League. In fact, they've had a lot of financial problems because it's just so manufactured. It's not real. It's not linked to a community. And I think there's a big issue there with the ownership of the clubs not being in tune with the communities. The ownership believe that they own a business as the club, and the club is actually far more than just the business. It's the community in which it resides in. It's the people around it, the fandom and that sort of thing. And it just all feels very kind of sad, to be honest.
There's one team that won't be doing it, and that's Leeds United. And Leeds have actually tweeted, as you pointed out earlier on, Finno, that their game tonight at 9:00 at Allen Road is the mighty Leeds United, Yorkshire's finest, against the Merseyside Reds.
I think it's good. I think it's good that they're having a bit of fun. None of you guys are fans of any of these teams. I am. I'm a fan of Liverpool, and they deserve some stick for this. They really do, because this is massively ill-judged, and like I say, mainly because it's just such a boring idea for the whole thing. So they deserve it, and I just wonder. I've got two things to say to what Finno said. There is, number one, I don't know how and I don't know why, but I don't think it will get to the point of banning the players from the World Cup. We'll see. But I just doubt that FIFA will back UEFA to that extent. And also, I think there are a whole load of legal hurdles to get through. And I can't. We certainly don't have time to get into it, but I don't think that's going to happen. But I do wonder if you might be onto something there about it's partly the foreign ownership, isn't it? Surely, and I know it's facile just to look across at the US and say, they have the closed league ideas of NFL and so on, and to think that what they're trying to do is maybe it's a lack of basic understanding about what gives football that sort of spice, and the fact that I'm sure there's a PowerPoint presentation somewhere, right? Linking, NFL to a European Super League and just saying, the fans will, they'll get used to it. They'll get rid of it. And you know what? The fans will get used to it. Sad thing is, they're probably right, aren't they?
I'm not so sure. And yes, Liverpool and the rest of them will get a lot of stick, Kev. I think you're right though about the NFL kind of style. There is a Moneyball scenario going on somewhere for sure, no doubt about that. But yeah, Liverpool. Come back to Liverpool, Kev. Liverpool have this kind of perception that they're a family club, and Man City are the big spenders, and they bought the league. I mean, for the likes of Newcastle, Southampton, and West Ham, Liverpool are big spenders. 80 million on a goalkeeper, etc. But surely now, I mean, they can't use that anymore. And Arsenal also will look at the likes of Man City and Chelsea spending. They're all in the same boat now, and it is disgusting. Well, when you think about it, like, are you not rich enough? The Premier League money now is the most it's ever been. There's 100 million just from being in the Premier League, and the TV money is through the roof, especially because of COVID. They're on every channel now. Like, they're showing every single game. Before COVID, there was only, obviously an X 5 games possibly on a weekend, including a Friday and a Monday. Now they're getting bonkers money from Asia, from everywhere. So there's no need for this bloody thing.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting we talk about the foreign ownership and this Americanization of English football, because there have been people in the press talking about the fact that it's quite well documented that the American owners of the big teams in England can't simply grasp why there is a relegation in the Premier League. It's one of those things that football's fandom is a perfectly inelastic thing. You either have 100% fandom of a club or 0% fandom of a club. The great adage was that the worst investment in the world was buying a football club, because it was just money down the well and you didn't see any return on it. And now what we're actually seeing is, with the involvement of somebody like JP Morgan and these kind of owners like the Kroenkes, for example, who moved the Rams from St. Louis to the LA, instantly doubling their $1 billion franchise in value. They're looking at it and they're applying that same almost venture capital like model to European football. And if they are successful, they will make billions of pounds. Something needs to be done, and I don't know how you wrangle that in, whether it's, political intervention, which FIFA and UEFA are strongly against, traditionally. But maybe they do need political help to rein in these free enterprises.
You also wonder, will this create a divide among the fans? Like you brought up earlier on, it's a magical thing, this, like I remember going back to doing the away day confessions with Man City fans, and they hadn't been to Europe in, I don't know how many, 30, 40 years, but then they got to go to Madrid and they went to Rome and these places, and the stories were fantastic, and the fans would save up to go to 2 or 3 European away games if they could. And it was a big trip, talking about it for ages. But the magic is gone if it's going to happen every other week. You can't afford that. And secondly, I say divide. Let's have a look at Salzburg, Red Bull Salzburg, Austria Salzburg here. Red Bull came in with the money and they created a better team, but the history of the club was then gone. And it was a huge divide among the supporters. Will that happen to the diehards of Liverpool and Man City and Chelsea and Tottenham? And Man United fans, a lot of them live in London anyway. So, or so they say. But, all joking aside, there could be a divide. There could be a lot of people. Like there was a banner, Kev, outside Liverpool, the ground. I can't remember exactly what it said, but, they were objecting, about Liverpool Football Club from when it was formed to this year, that, a lot of them, their loyalty will go away if this goes ahead.
United had something similar in the Stretford end. They had the Sir Matt Busby quote, which is, "Football is nothing without fans." And you've already seen it with Man United and the Glazers, that the Phoenix club, so to speak, of FC United of Manchester play in the lower leagues of England because they were so sickened by what was happening to their football club over, it must be 10, 15, 20 years ago that the Glazers took over. I could quite easily see that. I just don't see the hurdles that are there for a kind of a fan-led initiative. People will get bored very quickly, I think, if you see it with, FC United of Manchester, who really knows who they are in terms of world football. There is a certain amount of glitz and glamour attached to being a Man United fan, a Liverpool fan, a City fan, a Chelsea fan, that if you were to have these kind of fan-led clubs, I just don't think that they would catch on.
What worries me is I don't see a very happy way out of this is the thing, because it would be fine if you could say, all right, well, let them go, let those super clubs go, and then we'll somehow have the old football back, like the old money, and then somehow it'll be like 10 quid to get in, and you can see a Premier League game, and you can buy a shirt for 20 quid, and you can buy a programme and a pie and a pint, and at the game, a bit like like we've all lived in Salzburg, and going down and watching the local club sort of SAK, which we've all been to do, is just great fun, isn't it? Because you can just go and watch the local team and have a drink while you're watching it. But we're not. If this happens, we're not magically going to go to the fact that it's not suddenly going to be 10 quid to go and watch West Ham. I mean, it's not. It's not going to be 10 quid to go and watch Leicester. It's not going to solve any of this, even if this all does go through and they all do go. Because if it did happen like that, that might be some kind of happy outcome to it. But it will probably just be that this will be some new super tier of money that no one's ever allowed to go, because you have to be some like super well connected or have colossal amounts of money to go. There'll still be 50 quid to go and see all the other Premier League teams.
Yeah, I don't think we're debating that, Kev. I don't think we're debating whether the price of tickets or shirts will go down for the rest of us. But if you look at if you're a team like Sheffield United, come up, or Norwich come up, or West Brom, they wouldn't fill the stadium probably every week. But when a Liverpool or an Arsenal or a Chelsea or a Spurs come to town, they'd fill, and then they'd stay in hotels in the area. They'd buy pints, they'd buy pies. It's a lot for the local income as well that wouldn't be there anymore. There's that side to think about it as well. Plus, also, like I brought on before, is the players, your best players then, who are getting 40 grand a week playing for Newcastle. If you're offered 120 grand a week to play for Tottenham and sit on the bench in the Super League, what are you going to do?
I think you're absolutely right, JP. We've seen that, right? There's absolute evidence of that footballers are very happy. Some footballers are very happy to sit on the bench and get their 100 and odd thousand a week. Yeah, I think you're right.
The issue that we have, though, is that the Premier League has already created a culture of spending. You look at the Championship teams that are chasing promotion, they're already spending tens of millions of pounds to chase that, pot of money. And ultimately the TV rights have made it so that you don't need to open the stands. You don't need people to come into your stadium, because the TV rights are so much money that they can operate without needing to have the fans in the stands. And almost it's like they're doing the fans a favour in letting them watch the football. And yes, the however many millions of pounds that Arsenal will bring in season ticket revenue, it's dwarfed by the prize money and the TV rights even before they go into the Super League. It's just really sad, I think. Like, I keep going back to it, but it doesn't feel like football. I just can't get over the image of somebody wanting to be a Man City fan because they're from a certain part of Manchester, because their dad and their granddad was a Man City fan, when they're playing against Real Madrid and Barcelona every week. What about, let's think of West Ham. West Ham lose their biggest rivalries in Arsenal, Tottenham and Chelsea. You lose that magic that makes us all football fans. And it's not just the teams that are there, but it's also the teams that are left behind, so to speak, that will suffer from it.
I'm really intrigued to see how this is going to end up, because if you remember a few months ago, there was this project Big Picture, which was essentially just a kind of press release that got sent out. This seems far further along than that. You see today, Ed Woodward and some other chairmen have actually resigned their positions from UEFA. So I think I agree with Kev. Initially, my first thought was, but it's never going to happen, is it? But I think they're actually a fair way down the road with it, and this seriously could actually happen, I think.
Do you think, Joe, they realised that or predicted that the backlash would be so bad?
Probably not. I don't think they'd have predicted that we'd get, Boris Johnson, people from the government, people from UEFA. It seems to have, it's a really emotive topic. I think they would have predicted that the fans wouldn't be happy, but I'm not sure they'd have realised the level and how high this would have gone. And this stinging criticism from the head of UEFA today was incredible.
Yeah, I think it's taken all the romance and poetry out of football altogether, and we hope it doesn't continue. Speaking of poetry, we have our own Scouse lyrical genius. Kev, what have you got for us?
Well, I suppose only one topic this week, so apologies for not actually talking about any real football. If sport, as Orwell said, is really war without the shooting, football at the top now feels like plundering and looting. Once we were the fans, but now we're customers, consumers, patronised and classified from Gen Zs through to boomers, ignored until the owners need support or validation. The Super League announcement, just the final confirmation that football's dirty dozen have contempt for us poor schmucks. Our loyalties assumed amid the chase for foreign bucks. And the worst thing is that this all feels so second rate. 6 teams from the Premier League, from 12 announced to date, incestuous, mundane, and just deeply unappealing. What good's a 5-star hotel if you're staring at the ceiling? I don't know, maybe it's just another warning shot. But Florentino Perez, is that really all you've got? If this is just a ploy, then mate, it reeks of desperation. Don't see this appealing to the gaming generation. Sure, you'll get your money now. No one will go insolvent, but you'll quickly come to see that football needs outside involvement. The beauty of our game is that there's no baked-in stagnation. However damn unlikely, there's a risk of relegation. And even more importantly is another basic notion, a chance for everyone to dream of winning that promotion. The secret to success has come in open competition. All that you've proposed will just betray the game's tradition. So farewell to the 6 after these lurid machinations. Good luck to all the hedge funds and the offshore corporations, the billionaire investors and the super agents too. Can the game survive without them? Yeah, I think we'll muddle through.
Not a very enthusiastic clap this week from a pro-European League greedy Scouse, Kev. Thanks a lot, lads. This has been the Irishman, Englishman, and Scotsman Football Podcast. Don't forget, folks, check out our YouTube channel. There's a brilliant interview with Terry Phelan about John Scales getting his football boots or £300 shoes nailed to the dressing room floor, playing at the World Cup, and Roy Keane's temper. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. We'll be back again on Friday evening to preview next weekend's games. Thank you. Enjoy the games. Thank you for listening. If you'd like to hear more of our podcasts, please click on the red subscribe button on the bottom right-hand side. Thank you.